The movie begins with a scene of teachers having a celebration in the staff room. The teachers memorizing the year that they had. They say farewell to one of the teachers, called Elizabeth. They tell her that they consider her part of the Jams family, and then they ask her to give a speech. Elizabeth says that she has been there for only a year, and that she will miss her students the most. We then see a scene of her walking in the hallway, but she turns away from the students. Then she says that she wants to get to know the other staff members better. But once again, we see a scene of her turning away from a birthday celebration. She then says that with 4 classes and planning a wedding, her hands were full. She then says that she doesn't need a blackboard or a classroom to set an example. Later, we see her smoking marijuana while she carelessly pulls her car out of the parking, almost crashing into the bus. Just as she drives off, she shouts, "Adios, bitches." She returns home and tells her fiancé that they're going to have a fun, but she sees that her fiancé's mother is there. Mark tells her that she has spent $16,000 since they have been together. Mark's mother then asks her whether she knows about Mark's birthday. Elizabeth replies that she is insulted by the comment, but his mother tells her that it was today. Elizabeth is surprised, but she tries to cover it up by giving Mark a present, but his mother tells her that this has to end, and Mark tells her that the relationship is over. She tries to convince Mark to marry her, but fails, and the relationship ends. It turns out that Elizabeth really didn't love Mark, and was only with him for the money. The film then jumps forward 3 weeks, and we see that Elizabeth is back at work at the school, and that her expensive car has vanished. When she comes into the school, she meets Amy, who tells her that she is sorry that her relationship has ended. Elizabeth tells her that she had caught her fiancé with another man, and that was the reason the relationship ended. Amy then tells her that she knows that Elizabeth had been busy earlier, but this time around, she expects that Elizabeth is going to be a good teacher. Elizabeth is sitting in a classroom when Lynn offers to take her to lunch, but Elizabeth tells her that she is busy. Lynn tells her that it is her treat, and Elizabeth decides to go with her. Over lunch, Elizabeth tells Lynn that the only thing she wants to do is to find a guy that would take care of her, and the one thing she needs is a new pair of breasts. Lynn tells her that she doesn't want to do this and that she is already beautiful. Elizabeth is then seen in a bar as a rich man asks her to come to his boat, but she comments that he is married and invites his younger associate to come over. The two start talking and then end up making out, but the man tells her that he is a trainee, and after his training is over, he is going to become an occupational therapist, as he wants to do something that matters. This annoys Elizabeth, and she tells him that he is not good enough for her, and she returns to the bar. The next day, Amy is shown teaching a class as a bored class looks on. Elizabeth then comes into class apparently hungover. She dims the light and throws down her bag. A student comes over and tells her that her mother has made some cookies for her. She doesn't respond to the girl and tells another student to pull up the TV. The student appreciates that she is showing them a movie on the first day. Elizabeth then takes a bite of the cookie and spits it back out to the shock of the girl that had brought them. She then comments that the cookies suck. Later, Elizabeth is shown in the cafeteria as Russell, the gym teacher, asks her out for a date. She tells him that she does not date co-workers and blows him off. Amy then comes over and comments that Elizabeth shouldn't have shown a movie on the first date. The two have an awkward interaction as Elizabeth walks off. She goes into the hall and sees an attractive man in the hallway. He introduced himself as Scott Delacorte. He tells her that he is the new substitute. Elizabeth notices that he is wearing an expensive watch and comments about it, to which Scott replies that his grandfather designed this watch and that it was from his family business. This impresses Elizabeth, who asks about his wife. He replies that he doesn't have a wife and recently ended a relationship with a person going by the name of Catherine. Then he shows a photo of his girlfriend, who appears to have big breasts. Later, Elizabeth appears in a doctor's office where he introduces her to a patient who has already had breast surgery. Elizabeth tells the surgeon that she is going to have the surgery. She is informed by the clinic's assistant that she must pay $9,300. Elizabeth tells her that her financial situation is a bit tough and that she will need some time. Later, she is seen calling her parents for the money. When her father doesn't give her any, she goes and slashes the tire of his car. She also calls her ex for the money, stating that he owes her as the entire situation is very humiliating for her. Her boyfriend then cuts the call, and it is shown that Elizabeth is living with someone she met on Craigslist. When she cuts the call, her roommate comes out and tells her that he might be a little behind on the month's rent. Then he brings a bottle for Elizabeth and tells her they should get wasted. The next day, she shows another movie to the class where a girl tells her that they are going to hold a car wash and that they raised $6,000 the last time. Elizabeth is impressed by this and decides to visit the principal's office. He appears to have a strong love for dolphins. She starts to flirt with him, and the principal, in response, suggests that Amy should be responsible for supervising the 7th grade car wash. However, Elizabeth manages to convince the principal to grant her permission instead. Dressed alluring, she begins cleaning cars at the car wash, catching the attention of all the male customers. The situation becomes even more chaotic when a police officer accidentally collides with a parked vehicle. Then Scott comes up on the scene in his Audi, and she tries to ask him out on a date, but he refuses. At the end of the car wash, Elizabeth sits in a car and counts the money. Amy sees this and complains to the principal about Elizabeth and tells him that she might have taken money from the car wash. The principal tells her to get out and that she should leave him in peace. The next day, while she is teaching a class, Elizabeth is told that the students have to go through a pre-test. Elizabeth then tells the students that the tests are not worth it and tells the students that she is supposed to give them 45 minutes and they should start working on the test. Elizabeth seems to have something against Amy and calls her a phony while she helps a student. Scott comes to the cafeteria and he stops to talk with Elizabeth and Lynn. Elizabeth sends Lynn away, but at the same moment, Amy comes and starts talking with Scott. She even reveals that Elizabeth is about to get breast enlargement surgery, which angers Elizabeth. Sometime later, a parent-teacher conference is held, and the parents tell Elizabeth that they don't think much about her approach to teaching the children with movies. Elizabeth tells them that the school has hired her because she is amazing at what she does, and that she uses movies as just one of her many multimedia aids. She then tells them to enjoy the refreshments, which are just a glass of water and a pack of Oreos. She then dismisses the class, but just as she is about to walk out of the class, one of the parents stops her and tells her that he would appreciate it if she paid a little more attention to his child. He then hands her some money. This gives an idea to Elizabeth, and she starts to convince other parents to give her money so she can give private tutoring classes. As the animosity between Amy and Elizabeth grows, things start to heat up. Amy gets Scott a book called Eat, Pray, Love, and Scott tells her that it is his favorite book too. The two share a moment, and then we see Elizabeth smoking marijuana in her car. A student surprises her, and she tells her that it is prescribed by the doctor. The student tells her that she has got some more cookies for her, and Elizabeth tells her to stop dressing like she wants to run for Congress. Elizabeth then tells the student that she is high and drives off. At the school ball, Russell tries to hit on Elizabeth once again, but Elizabeth rejects his advances once more, and then she goes over to dance with Scott. The two then go into the hallway, and Scott tells her that he is interested in Amy, but Elizabeth tells her that Amy is a lesbian. This breaks Scott's heart. Elizabeth then goes back into the hall and tells Russell that they should get high together. She also forces Lynn to get high with them. Russell and Elizabeth then continue smoking in the gym room. Later, Elizabeth hears through her closest friend, Lynn Davis, that the teacher of the class with the greatest state exam results would get a bonus of $5,700. With this information, Elizabeth decides to adjust her teaching method, requiring the class to read and study To Kill a Mockingbird in preparation for the impending test. However, the adjustment is too little, too late. The kids' quiz results are poor, which frustrates her even more. Meanwhile, Amy and Scott begin dating, and she befriends Russell, the gym teacher. Elizabeth obtains the state test answers by impersonating a journalist and courting Carl Halaby, a state official in charge of preparing and distributing the examinations. Elizabeth gets Carl intoxicated and encourages him to have intimate with her in his office, but she drugs his drink and grabs a copy of the answers. Elizabeth's class aced the test a month later, and she received the bonus, allowing her to get her breasts enlarged. When Elizabeth hears that Amy and Scott will be chaperoning a field trip, she spreads poison ivy on an apple and leaves it for Amy, who ends up with blisters on her face and is unable to go. Elizabeth seduces Scott while on vacation. They dry hump, and Elizabeth surreptitiously contacts Amy on Scott's phone, leaving a voicemail that records everything, guaranteeing that she is aware of the affair. Elizabeth, on the other hand, finds Scott disappointing. Garrett is humiliated and mocked by his classmates on a field trip after loudly declaring his unrequited love for a classmate called Chase. After that, Elizabeth soothes him by telling him how she is too superficial to return his attention, which makes Elizabeth think about her own superficial ways. She assists Garrett by handing him her bra and tells everyone that she caught him with a girl from another school, giving him a fun to stop the other kids from making fun of him. Amy leaves the school and replaces Elizabeth's desk with her own in order to fool the janitor into opening Elizabeth's locked drawer. Amy discovers Elizabeth's journalist disguise as well as the practice test, leading her to believe she cheated on the state exam. Amy notifies the principal and convinces Carl to testify against her. Elizabeth, on the other hand, snapped unflattering images of Carl while he was unconscious and used them to blackmail him into saying she was innocent with the assistance of her roommate, Kirk. Amy accuses Elizabeth of drug usage after failing to reveal her cheating on the basis of a tip from a student. When the cops come and search the school with their sniffer dog, they discover Elizabeth's small liquor bottles, marijuana, and OxyContin pills in Amy's classroom, hidden in a concealed compartment in Amy's desk, which Elizabeth graciously points out to the cops. Amy is transferred to another school in the county by the superintendent at the end of the school year. Scott wants to start again with Elizabeth, but she rejects him in favor of Russell, with whom she has discovered she has a lot of interests. When the new school year begins, Elizabeth has decided against getting the breast enhancement since she believes she looks good as is. She also has a new job as a guidance counselor at the school.